everyone, my name is Nur Ali Alisha binti Mokhtar from section 4.16.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Humaira Edina binti Masawi and I am from section 4.16.
Hi, my name is Rajinu Alia binti Rajinuddin. I am from section BE 4.16.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Lania Maisara Safia and I am from BE 4.16.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Darisha Arana binti Aziz and I'm from section 4.16.
Hi, my name is Fitri Natasha binti Mama Hanif. I'm from BE 4.16. Now we are going to present our research based on language choice and social variation among Tesl students at Kptm Bangi. So the content for our research is introduction, research methodology, findings, discussion, also conclusion. And this is our 6 members in the presentation. Now let's get into the first slide. So for our introduction is, language is not only a tool for communication but also a reflection of culture, identity and social belonging. In Malaysia, people often switch between English, Malay and local dialects depending on the situation. For Tesl students at Kptm Bangi, language choice is especially important as they use English in academic settings but Malay or dialects in daily life. This study explores how social factors such as gender, peer influence, and classroom environment influence students' language choices and identity.
Assalamualaikum, Miss. For Shasha's part, for these 2 slides, she is going to do a voiceover for her video because we have a technical issue where the mic's battery is finished. So I'm so sorry for doing the voiceover. So for the purpose of the study is objective. First, to examine how Tesl students at Kptm Bangi use different languages such as English, Malay and dialects in various contexts. For the second one is to investigate the influence of social factors such as peer influence, gender and classroom dynamics on language use and how these shapes identify as multilingual individuals and future educators. So for our research questions is, question 1, how does social variations such as peer influence, classroom dynamics, gender and hometowns shape Tesl students' language choices? Question 2, in what ways do language choices influence Tesl students' sense of identity as learners and future English teachers?
So now let's move on to the next slide, which is research methodology. So, research approach, quantitative survey design, data collection, questionnaire distributed through Google Form, and the focus for this research is to examine Tesl students' language choices, social variation and identity at Kptm Bangi. The purpose of this research is to identify patterns and relationships between language use, social factors, and students' sense of identity as future English teachers. So, for this one is research design. This study follows a quantitative survey designed to gather responses from Tesl students. The data were analyzed using descriptive statistics, mainly frequency and count and percentages, to find trends and patterns. The structured questionnaire included 3 sections, which is Section A, demographic information, Section B, language use and social variation, and Section C, language choice and identity. Now let's move on to the next person.
Okay, for my research, it's focused specifically on the Tesl students who enroll at Kptm Bangi. For this study, I employed a convenient sampling method. This means I selected participants who are readily accessible and willing to take part in the study. This was an efficient approach that allowed me to quickly collect a substantial amount of data, helping me to identify robust, discernible patterns in the student language choices and the developing professional identities. To gather my data, I designed a comprehensive questionnaire divided into 3 distinct sections. Section A was designed to capture essential background and demographic details about the students. Section B was the core of the investigation, asking students of how their language used in different social situations, specifically how they communicate with their peers and lecturers, and within formal versus informal settings. Finally, Section C was dedicated to explore the more abstract concept of how their choice of language directly shapes their identity and perspective as a future English teacher. For the next slide, data analysis. All the collected data was input and then efficiently analyzed using Google Form. This tool automatically generated clear chart and percentage, which made the raw result immediately accessible and easy to understand. The analysis was structured to address the research question. The result from section A and B clearly indicated the prevalence of different language in various settings, while the result from section C provide deep insights into the student's attitude and subject perspective toward English. For the last slide is overview and details. The findings are based on the responses from Tesl students across all semester, offering a comprehensive view of the program's population. Overall, the data strongly highlight the significant influence of social factors on language choices. More specifically, Section B result confirm how social environment choice, like peer, groups, and classroom dynamic directly affect the student day-to-day communication patterns. Lastly, the findings from Section C powerfully demonstrate that language is not just a tool for communication or identity, it is a key vehicle through which these students express their multilingual language and solidify their future professional role as English educators.
For the explanation. Now, let's begin with the age distribution of the respondent. As shown in bar graph 1, the majority of the respondents, about 86%, were aged between 18 to 20 years old. Meanwhile, 40% were between 21 to 24 years old. Interestingly, there were no respondents aged 25 and above. This indicates that most of the participants in the study were in their early years in higher education. Moving on to the current semester of the respondent. According to bar graph 2, semester 4 had the highest number of the respondent, making up to 68% of the participant. This would follow by semester 5 with 40% and semester 3 with 12%. There were no respondents from semester 1, 2, and 6, and only 2% each were semester 1, 2, and 6 as a group. This tells us that majority of the data come from students in their mid-semester years. Next, let's look at the gender distribution. Bar 3 shows that the female students made up the majority of respondents, counting for 78%, while male students represent only 22%. This significant difference shows a higher female participation in this study, which could reflect the general gender ratio in Tesl program. Let's look at the place of origin of the respondent. As shown in bar graph 4, 96.4% of the students came from urban areas, while remaining 30.6% were from rural areas. This suggests that students from urban backgrounds were most represented in this sample. Here's the ethnic background of the respondent. The majority of students were Malay, making up 94% of the sample. This followed by Chinese students at 4% and Indian students at 2%. This reflects the general demographic trend of the student population at Kptm Bangi.
Now, we move on to the next key findings, which is Section B. So Section B is focuses on how students use language in different contexts and how social factors influence their language choices. First, for item 1, the majority of students reported using both Malay and English of language use when they're communicating with lecturers, while the use of local dialects was the least common. This suggests that students tend to use bilingual communication in formal situations to sound both polite and clear. Next, for item 2, which is examine language choice during group work with classmates. Most of students also would use both Malay and English. It is showing that code switching is common when working together academically. Last, for item 3, which looks at language use when interacting with friends outside the classroom. A majority students choose both Malay and English again, while only a small number use English alone. This shows that students are comfortable blending language in casual social situations. Next, we move on to the second part of Section B, which is focuses on social influence of language use. For item 1, the influence of gender, most students answered sometimes, suggesting that gender may affect language choices in certain contexts, but not always strongly. For item 2, regarding hometown background, a majority of students answered yes, it does, showing that where they come from influence how they use language. For item 3, which looks at the impact of peer groups, most students agree that peer groups influence language choice, meaning that friends played a big role in shaping on how they speak. Finally, for item 4, about classroom expectations, an overwhelming 82% said yes, it does, indicating that classrooms, rules, and lecturer expectations strongly affect their language use, especially in formal learning settings. Now, let's move on to the last key findings, which is section C, that focuses on language choice and identity. For the first item, students were asked about English as a professional language. Most students said that using English makes them feel more professional. This means they believe English is important for their future careers as teachers. The second item is about the role of Malay in culture. Almost all students agreed that Malay helps them feel closer to their culture and identity. This shows that even though they use English a lot, Malay is still important for their sense of belonging. The third item is about English dialects and personal identity. Many students agreed that using local or informal English helps them express who they are. So we can see that language variety helps them feel more natural and connected to their background.
Thank you, Yaya, for the explanation. Okay, so for this part, importance of English for future English teacher. Okay, we can see that most responded believe English is very important for their future teaching career. So based on the data, 72% strongly agree and 24% agree, showing that the majority recognize how essential English proficiency is for English teacher. So this means students are aware that mastering English can improve their confidence and teaching skill in the future classroom. So next, we have the significance of the Malay language in maintaining social relationship. The findings show that 40% strongly agree and 32% agree that using Malay helps them build and maintain social ties. This indicates that Malay still plays an important role in daily communication, especially in maintaining cultural identity and sense of belonging among peers. Okay, so moving on, this slide focus on the influence of local dialects on identity formation. A total of 38% agree and 40% strongly agree that their local dialect shape their personal identity. This shows that dialects are not only a way of speaking, but also part of who they are. It reflects their background, hotam, and cultural pride. So lastly, this slide discusses the challenge of being multilingual as a future English teacher. Here, 36 of respondents are neutral, while 34% strongly agree that balancing multiple language while teaching English can be challenging. This means that while multilingualism is an advantage, it also can cause confusion or difficulty in maintaining English fluency in professional contexts. Okay, so overall, this discussion summarizes the meaning of the survey finding from Tesl student at Kptm. So overall, this discussion summarized the meaning of survey finding from Tesl student at Kptm Bangi. It shows how students make language choices depending on different contexts, whether formal or informal. Their choices are influenced by factors such as gender, peer influence, and place of origin. The findings also highlight how English, Malay, and local dialect play different roles in shaping social relationship, classroom interaction, and personal identity. Lastly, the study compares this result with previous study and show that being multilingual helps students adapt to various communication settings, even though it sometimes brings certain challenges.
So now for my slide, for contextual settings, our findings show that students' language choices are strongly influenced by context. In formal situations, such as classroom discussion or interaction with lecturers, students mostly use English because it is the medium of instruction and represents their academic identity. In contrast, in informal settings like peer conversation or when talking with family members, students tend to use Malay or their local dialects. This adaptability reflects the findings of Rahman, Heng and Abdullah 2012, who stated that language choice often shifts depending on the social domain and context. For social factors such as gender, peer influence and place of origin also play an important role in shaping students' language practices. For example, urban students show a greater tendency to use English even when communicating with their peers, while rural students prefer to use Malay or their local dialects. This finding supports the study by Grant Hammett, Abdullah, Heng and Tan 2015, which show that gender and social background have a significant impact on language choice patterns. For identity, language choice is also closely related to identity. For many students, using English represents professionalism and an academic identity, especially since they are Tesl students who are preparing to become future English teachers. On the other hand, the use of Malay or local dialects reflects cultural pride and a sense of belonging to their community. Overall, the results show that Tesl students are able to adapt their language use depending on the audience, situation, and their identity as future English teachers. For social-linguistic interpretation, the findings of this study can be interpreted through a social-linguistic lens, particularly focusing on the concepts of code switching and diglossia. These phenomena occur when speakers shift between different languages or varieties depending on the context and audience. In this case, students switch between English and Malay or local dialects to suit different situations. English is mainly used in formal and academic settings where it symbolizes power, professionalism, and academic identity. Meanwhile, Malay and local dialects are often used in informal or personal contexts, representing cultural belonging and emotional connection with others. This pattern shows that language is not just a tool for communication, but also a marker of identity and social power within different social domains. It reflects how students use language to express who they are and where they belong. The results support the study by Grant Hammett 2015, which found that gender and social background influence how Malaysian speakers choose their language. They also aligned with Chetno 2014, who emphasized that language choice among Malaysian multilinguals reflects identity, negotiation, and social relationships. Overall, these findings highlight the dynamic and meaningful way language functions in shaping identity, culture, and social interaction among Tesl students. In conclusion, the findings show that Tesl students' language choice is dynamic and context-based, meaning that they shift their language use depending on the setting, audience, and purpose of communication. English is mainly used in formal academic situations where it represents professionalism, competence, and readiness for their future careers as English teachers. On the other hand, Malay and local dialects are preferred in informal settings, such as with friends or family, because they reflect social bonding, familiarity, and cultural pride. The study also shows that social factors, including gender, peer influence, and place of origin, play an important role in shaping students' language, practices, and their sense of identity. Overall, it is important for educators to recognize the multilingual realities of their students. Teachers should encourage students to build confidence in using English while also respecting and valuing their linguistic and cultural backgrounds. The balanced approach not only supports language learning but also helps students develop a strong sense of identity as multilingual individuals and future educators. That's all from me. Thank you.